Welcome to But First Coffee. I'm not supposed to be solo, and I don't think I'll be solo for very long. But Jackye is having all kinds of computer issues, and so she is working with our tech team to get it remedied. Good morning. We are sorry to be late this morning. We will be um, Oh my goodness. We will be jumping in right now because we're super late and want to be respectful of time. I'm getting all kinds of text messages and notices. And by the way, thank you everyone for letting me know that you can't see it. That at least lets me know someone is watching. and messaging me on WhatsApp and Twitter and text just to say, hey, it's a blank screen, nothing's happening, all that good stuff. So we are really sorry. I don't know that I can blame this one on Restream. I would like to, but I don't think that I really can blame it on Restream. Let me make sure that my microphone. Hey, there we go. Much better. Much better. There we go. You probably can hear me much better now. I'm going to say it all again. Jackye is coming. We've had some tech issues for her computer, and so the classic restart is underway. Hopefully that means she'll be able to join momentarily. Thank you. I appreciate those of you saying you can see me. Hopefully you can hear me. Are you able to hear me? You can give me a thumbs up in that chat. She is still on AOL dial-up, and so that is part of the issue. I've been trying to. She said Waco doesn't offer different service, but that I don't know that I believe her, but I really think she should be ready for something. She might be on HughesNet. Obviously, all of these people that I'm saying right now, AOL and HughesNet, will likely never be sponsors of But First Coffee, and I don't know if they were really on the list, but I apologize if I've upset anyone with it. Good morning. Good to see everyone. Hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. I know that we are super late, 15 minutes late to start. But thank you for being here, especially because today is kind of a really heavy topic. And so, typical that it doesn't go well to get things started. So good morning. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. As you know, we were off last Thursday because of the holiday. Ooh. She is trying to call in, and I can't imagine why. Hey, what's going on?
Did you see it going back and forth, letting me in?
Yes.
Listen.
What is happening?
I do have a special guest.
Hi. Oh my goodness. That is a wonderful special. Oh, now I understand why you couldn't be here on time. Now I get it. I understand.
That's what it is. Look, Clay made me for my office Christmas tree.
Is it like a pink hue to it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
On the tree.
I mean, what a joy that is. How fun. And so Clay is now decorating. Yes? Is that what's happening?
Yes. Clay is decorating. So we'll sit like this. So we don't
are you supervising? Is that what's happening? You're supervising.
Yes. Yes. We have 3 trees in the house. And
I do know people who have more. I know people who have like half a dozen that they just put in different spots. I think it's a little much, but
we have our Dallas Cowboys tree because
nobody wants that tree. Nobody wants that tree. Just saying, Eagles fan here. Just saying, nobody wants that tree.
Losers. You mean turkeys?
Don't be hating because of the brotherly shove. Don't be hating because of that.
The brotherly shove. That is funny. How are you doing today? I know talking about grief and laughing, but
no, it's part of grief, I think. So for those, good morning to everyone. Again, we are so sorry we were so late, but we are grateful for any of you who decided to stick around and are still here.
our millions of fans
Are now 6. So, you know, that's yes. So November 15th, my dad passed away after almost 3 years of a bout with pulmonary fibrosis and emphysema. And especially the last, I'll say, 6 months or so, really, really struggled to breathe. He'd been on oxygen for years, full time, but the last 6 months really just bad. Really couldn't get his breath. Oxygen levels would drop regularly. Honestly, just even sitting there, wasn't exertion oriented per se. It was even just sitting there. So, and those of you who have known me for a long time, you know, my dad's a singer. He was a lead singer in a doo-wop group. And so he couldn't do any of those things anymore, right? Just, you know, you need breath control to sing. And when you can't breathe, it's really hard to have breath control, right? So, so I got back Tuesday evening. I'm looking again at the calendar. Yeah, late Tuesday night, got back after being up in New Jersey for 2 weeks. I did get to be with my dad the day before and sit with him. And so that is a blessing that I jumped on a plane and got up there in time. And so mom's dealing with, you know, what mom needs to deal with. And, you know, those of you who come from an Italian background, if anybody out there either directly does or has witnessed, I mean, honestly, Sunday when I'm there, like we just had a bunch of people over. My mom is cooking, you know, all kinds of stuff because that's the mode, right? You just get into that. Yes. I lost your audio. Are you on mute?
no.
Okay, I hear you now. Great.
But did your mom make the gravy, the famous gravy?
She made the famous gravy and homemade. We had homemade spaghetti, and I mean, just like, you know.
And her sisters and the aunties.
People, yes, we you know, the interesting thing with the holidays, which we're going to talk about obviously with grief, it's also a scheduling thing.
Oh,
so we wound up we didn't have his funeral until this past Monday. So the 27th, and again he passed away on the 15th because people were like the church, the staff there were away. And my parents live in a community where, I don't want to be mean, but there's a lot of old people. And so they had a bunch of funerals already. And honestly, they were scheduled out past my dad's as well. It's like just so much death in the area going on that it's like, you know, who's today's funeral? That's where we're at. Every day is a funeral.
For those, I mean, you know, we're Gen Xers. One of the things that happens, literally, I remember seeing it with my parents. And now we're at that stage of life where you kind of go through, everybody starts getting engaged, and then everybody's getting married, and then everybody's kids. Everybody's graduating or not graduating, and then you have new weddings. You start seeing people getting married and children, but then you also seeing your friends pass or your friends' parents pass in that season. And there's nothing that really prepares you for that. There's nothing prepares you for that. When you were gone, when you sent me the note about your dad, I was on a call, and I was like, oh no, John's gonna be with his dad. His dad's not doing well. And I was like, let me show you John's dad. I want to show you John's dad. And I always pick songs your dad's singing. And of course, the one I pick, he's singing My Way. And this person who's met you like 3 times, bawling. They like had no idea because he was singing My Way, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And look at his hair and his mustache. And
oh yeah, the whole right. Yes,
who made you shave your mustache?
I did. So I felt like, I don't know, it's just a hard time to fundraise, right? And grow a stash and stuff. And so my head wasn't in it. Actually, it went out, I think, on Facebook this morning. I just kind of owned the fact that I sort of let Movember down because I just, had my other things that I needed to pay attention to. And so I didn't want to be at honestly, I didn't want to be at my dad's service with this like porn stash. And so
I thought like your executive producer was like, John.
No, what I said, I'm like, I think I'm going to shave so that I'm, I don't know, I look presentable for the service. She didn't fight me. She was like, that's good. Kathy's like, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Because it just creeps her out, which I actually makes me enjoy it even more, which is probably not the right motivation. Right. But, but you and I, it's funny, right? You're saying this, like things that we sort of age related generationally go through. And it's really interesting because, you and I obviously sharing in this in 2023 with the loss of a parent. One of my best friends from high school, his dad passed away about almost 2 months ago now. And wait for this, in the same town and the funeral at the same church. And so, I mean, right. And he has moved down to Florida as well over the past couple of years with his wife. And so they're on the other side of the state, but we're both down here. So he was up there 2 months ago for a couple of weeks with his mom, handling all the stuff with her. And I'm now 2 months later doing the same thing with my mom in the same town. And same town, by the way, that we didn't go to high school in, right? Like, so our parents have both kind of retired to the shore. And so that's where they wound up being. And his mom came to my dad's service. And I know, I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What are you doing? She's like, Greg, couldn't make it because, and I knew he couldn't. We've been texting and she's like, but I'm here and I wanted to be here. My mom and her, I mean, my mom knows what's going on with her and they're like crying in the aisle together, hugging each other. And I'm like, well, I can't take this. I
hated that. I think that's like, I mean, and we support each other.
Yeah.
We support each other.
Yes.
And no one can tell you how to do that. And you don't know. I think Katie thought I was really gruesome. I was laughing last week because my mother's friends keep calling me about the holiday party. I think I told you, like they literally were stalking. And then Miss Lily called.
Oh no.
And I'm like, Todd, I was trying to do another call and I was like, will you please talk to Miss Lily? And then Miss Margaret called and I was like, these 80-year-old women are going to drive down here if you do not get somebody.
They know what it's supposed to be. And they're just letting you know this is how it's supposed to be.
Pictures. It will be me and Todd and my college best friend David are all going to the holiday gala in our fancy clothes, and we are going to do the electric slide. We're going to have a choice of chicken
or fish. Come on now.
Cheesecake. And they'll fight for 30 minutes about who should stand in the front for the holiday picture. But we'll be there.
First of all, I love that. I know it's kind of outrageous, but I love that you're doing it. It's, again, speaking about this, and I don't feel old. I want to make sure I say this, right? So and I'm super transparent, right? I'm 53 years old. I don't feel 53. That's a whole other issue, but I don't feel old. So when you lose a parent, when you start to get to these places where, oh my goodness, like my dad's dad passed in 1980. Right. My dad was 73. And so, he's passed and I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm the oldest, like grandson dude now. And like, what is happening? I don't want to be at the top of this pecking order. What is happening, right? Right.
You're going to get to sit in the front row. People are going to give you a pillow.
No, not my mother. She'll be like, back of the line, buddy. Yeah, that
Table.
I'm literally had to crawl my way out of the children's table at like 29 years old. Like, I got married. I have a child on the way. Can I not sit at this,
They're like, no,
card table? Like, is it possible? But it is really interesting to think about. And again, this year with, my friend Greg, with you, with other folks that I know, we're at work still. We're still viable contributors to the workforce, and we're bringing this to work. And there's a few things that strike me about that when we talk about grief. And I'd love to know what your experience, specifically with colleagues and such, was like immediately after, because I don't know that we specifically talked about this. It's really interesting because one of the things that always stands out to me is awkwardness. Like, people don't know what to say. And I don't know that we've done a really good job of maybe on the parental side of things, perhaps, but we haven't really instructed well, like, how do you talk to people after loss? Because people don't seem to know what to do, right? Like, they're awkward about things.
I think what makes it hard is that we've also shared stories. Like, our millions of fans know we've been talking about your mom at the doctor's appointment, and how she was managing those situations. And so the immediate concern, I think, goes to the whole family dynamic of what you know. You're limited as to what you know. And I think it's just giving people space to do what they need to do. And I think part of that is, I was watching a speaker that was so great that did a speech about how they always say, put your oxygen mask on before you put other people's oxygen masks on.
Yes.
And at work, what that means is, if you know what's expected of you and you're understanding what your role is and what your remit is at work, as people grieve, people can log in to help. It becomes chaotic when people don't know and they feel like they don't want to mess things up.
No,
and even though they're grieving, they still want to ask, can I do these things? Right. And I was thinking about it in terms of today, when we talk about grieving at work, it's important. I mean, we can talk about performance reviews and expectations and understanding what your role is at work and job description. But in the crisis times, that's your oxygen mask in advance, is knowing what to expect at work, so that I can say, let me do this for you. I know that this is due on this week. I can help take on this for you. I can do the interviews for you. I can, pinch hit for your HRBP this week. I'll just tell I've told the team to report to me. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
The most important thing that you can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you're saying that, because even yesterday, so we had a leadership meeting. Clay's leaving?
Well, they're just going to the big house, which my people say don't call it the big house, but going to
my people say. We had a leadership meeting yesterday morning, and one of the first things I said to everybody was, I never had to think twice about things being handled right at Humoriso. Like, I didn't worry. And I logged in because it's just good for me, my process. Like, I don't want to just sit on a couch and cry. My mom and I take after her in that regard. Like, we just want to do some things so that our minds are doing other stuff. My sister, I would say, tends to be someone who does want to sort of sit and mourn. That's her pathway of grief for her, is to just kind of dwell on those things. I don't like to sit. It's not because I'm uncomfortable in the sense of afraid to deal with what I know has happened. But I don't wallow. I just don't wallow about a lot of things, quite honestly, not just death. Yes. I didn't know if you had access to share some of these. I was going to start sharing them as well.
I did either. Yeah, like people do mourn in different ways. I am fighting mental burnout, and I was like, someone said, if you take a day off, do you think you can stay off LinkedIn? And I'm like, if that is the requirement of a real day off, I've never taken a day off because I'm
Yeah.
always on LinkedIn.
Yes.
But that's something like, for me, I need to take a day off so I can do work in order to feel whole. That's just me. I just want to work on one particular project.
Yeah.
Some people need to be able to do nothing.
But some not, and we don't need to like, we might have opinions about what would work for us, like Josh sharing as well. And again, Josh this year as well, he lost his stepdad this summer, and you know, his mom went back to work 3 weeks later because if that's what she needed to do to sort of work through the grief, then I don't think we should sort of judge that. Certainly, I'm not talking about things that would be harmful to someone. I get that, right? If someone is in a room, honestly, my mom was in some ways more. She struggled with me leaving for college in very apparent ways. And I remember my sister calling me one night saying, not long after I went away, saying, "Mom's downstairs, in the dark, watching your high school graduation video and crying." And I was like, right. And I was at school and I thought, oh my goodness, that's the idea of you know, a break, of feeling a sense of loss because things are not going to be the same now, right? You know, John's gone away to school. And I think, and again, I'm not saying that's more impactful than my dad's passing. I'm saying I don't know what my mom's going to do now, right? In terms of the pathways for her, when it's going to hit her.
Like what I found as we're going into the year, you know, my mother passed away in March. As we're getting into the year, there's a weight that's lifted of realizing, like you've all heard of the, maybe not, some of you've heard of the movie Waiting to Exhale.
Oh yeah.
And it really talk about like how you're just holding your breath until you can catch a moment, right? You know, you're just trying to hold your breath. And I realized later, after my mom passed, when I had a moment to just kind of look back, and I was like, I've been carrying this weight of Parkinson's for years. The pressure of how am his dad dealing with this? How are my brother and sister dealing with this? How is she feeling? I have to go see her. I know today's her best day, but there is when people are like, they're in a better place, I feel like there is kind of a shared breath of taking a breath, where knowing that your dad can breathe and isn't going through this, and your dad doesn't have to be strong for everybody else, and try to be there.
Right. Too. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's a great point, because one of the other, I think, especially at our age in the workplace, we have employees who are in that sandwich consideration, right? They have families, kids, at whatever age, even teenagers, that they have to care for. And then they're also caring for a parent. Oftentimes there may be some issues with that parent from a health standpoint. And so here you are talking about like how much this sort of worry and accommodation consideration that you've had about Parkinson's for so long, and how it has affected activities that you were part of, right? So long. And my mom was my dad's caregiver for almost 3 years. I mean, and it just continued to get worse in terms of, I mean, she did everything for him the last year. I mean, everything. And now, you know, that ends. Right.
What do you, and they spend so much time together. There's that where it's like the sounds. I mean, it'll take time and I'm sure, I think that your parents, what I noticed so far in a lot of situations is that the parents have come to terms a little bit more than the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember, like when my grandfather, when he passed away, was 93, and my grandma was 90.
Yeah.
They had been together forever.
Yes.
And when my grandfather passed, and we were talking to grandma, and she was like, we were like, "Are you okay?" And she kept saying, "I don't know. I don't know." I mean, and she had like dementia, it made me think there are times where it's like, I think it goes back to like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now, or what I'm supposed to
Yes.
know, or what does this mean for me right now?
But I think a lot of it is about the grace to allow that to unfold how it unfolds. You know, people might hear me speaking to you right now and be like, "Gosh, John, your dad passed away like 2 weeks ago, and you're, you know, you're doing but first coffee and you're living life, and I think you should probably, you know, not be doing this. I think you should take a few months." I know people have thoughts, right? I'm sure. And for me, first of all, I was prepared in the sense that we knew that this was not going to heal. Pulmonary fibrosis doesn't heal, right? There's not a cure for it, and so ultimately, this would be a strong contributor to my dad's failing health. We knew that was going to happen. I'm not saying that that means it's easy. I'm just saying it means I wasn't caught unawares, because the other kind of grief that I, unfortunately, and you, I'm sure too, have been a part of, is the unexpected. And so I've been in workplaces where car accidents happen, and someone doesn't make it, and the grief now pervades departments, right? It pervades the manufacturing line. It pervades the sales floor, because this person was here yesterday and they didn't get home last night, and now we come back to work the next day and the person's not here. I never had a chance to prepare for that. It just happened, and that's a different kind of grief, I think, that we experience in that. And some people, honestly, listening, I'm sure, have also had those experiences. I don't know about you, but not only from a family standpoint, but just a life standpoint as a whole. It's funny to say this, but death has been a part of my existence as long as I can remember.
Mm.
As long as that people around me have died in all kinds of ways since I was a little kid. I mean, I was 10. I shared my grandfather died in 1980. I was 10 when my grandfather died. But I had other family members and other people that, like, not just like, oh, great aunt, you know, Cecilia, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, people I actually knew. When I was 13, one of my friends from school died of leukemia. When I was like this kind of stuff, right? I had another friend was killed by a drunk driver when I was 15. And I mean, like, stuff in my life is just this kind of heaviness has been a part of it. And so I think when I say that, when I approach grief, my goodness, I have like, now I'll really use an old term. I have like a Rolodex of circumstances that I've walked through. And so my approach to grief is really like well-founded because of how much I've gone through. That's not the case for everybody that you may come across, though, in the workplace. And so if you think, well, you should act like I act, you should behave the way I think you should behave because of where I am, I don't think that's fair. People do, Yvette said it earlier, people grieve differently and they have different experience with death.
Yes, and I appreciate what Yvette just said, saying you struggle with the bitter between peace of knowing they aren't suffering anymore and the grief of it all happening and losing the person.
Absolutely.
I'd have it. The only people who really know this part is us, the Golden Girls that we always talk about, the Golden Girls, and my husband that knows that I have this parasocial relationship with a woman who recently passed named Jenny Apple on YouTube. Like, not many people know that I have watched this woman for like 2 years. She had lung cancer. She's 33 years old. She said this 3-year old, 5-year old, and watching her husband has been almost a master class in
Mm,
grieving. And one night, and it's been part of what they wanted to do was kind of show this journey. But one of the things that happened last week, he got on and he filmed and he was like, y'all, I don't know what to do. It's just getting worse.
yeah.
And he's like, and he said, I got on here because Jenny used to say, if I'm feeling this way, go live, because other people are feeling that way and other people can help. And some
Yeah.
people need to hear that. And I think that's part of why we're doing this. This is our second grief this year, because what the biggest thing is to not feel alone,
Yeah.
and to know that there's different ways of grieving. I was thinking what you were just saying. Like, I was thinking, should we do it today? I was like, are you sure that you want
Right.
to do this
Right.
today? But I like this from Maggie.
Yeah, Maggie, thank you.
You know, like, we kind of similarly, so I usually get a facilitator for the rest of the year. I'm doing our executive DEIB training, and as a member of the executive team, I get a facilitator. That doesn't mean I don't need training, but end of the year, we have some other things going on, and so we wanted to frame around, performance feedback, different things. And so we talked about, like, what did everybody do last week? I hesitated to say, how did you celebrate Thanksgiving, knowing that people are in different situations. And I was like, how
Yeah.
did you celebrate last week? And it was interesting. One person said, well, there was Thanksgiving, but there's also 2 Indian holidays that were going on. And so we had Thanksgiving, but everybody dressed up in traditional Indian garb, but we had stuffing and it was really weird. Other people were like, we didn't celebrate this year, and then someone else was like, I had um, Thanksgiving has always been hard. It brings up bad memories. I never celebrate what the traditional Thanksgiving. And I did it. The lesson in it was, as much as we all go through this, we have different experiences with that. And then when
Yeah.
you share with what your family dynamics, it's important for us to share those things so that you can recognize another way. I'm at the point now where I'm
Yes.
like, I'm so glad with my kids. I didn't take a shower on Thanksgiving until like 4 o'clock. And part of it was almost in celebration, but also mockery of my mom, where I'm like, haha, I can wear pajamas and eat dinner, because my whole life, I always have to get dressed up for dinner,
Uh,
And one of the things where it's like, after we got past the initial stage of grieving, we kind of laughed when we were like, we don't have to wear lipstick at dinner anymore.
I gave that up a long time ago. I don't do it anymore at all for dinner. I mean,
Just it
look
helps
at
you
these,
look healthy.
look at
It's a
these
little.
natural beauties. Come on. But I think that one of the areas that I hear in what you're sharing is, we talk about the stages of grief. You know that. I mean, it's kind of classic
Mhm.
at this point, right? Um, I was reminded, though, with my dad's passing, that not everybody goes through every stage
That's
in,
right.
obviously not in the same way, but I mean, even for a particular period of time, I will tell you the truth. Denial. I didn't have denial about my dad's passing. Because I think that's what I would say was the preparation for me. I didn't sit in denial of it because I just knew how sick he was, and I do understand that, Yvette's comment that you shared in terms of, I am grateful that he's not suffering anymore. I mean, it's no way to live to struggle to take a breath. It's just
Yes.
not. And you've got oxygen tanks on you, in the
Yes.
nose, masks, everything
Yes.
happening, multiple oxygen tanks going, and you still can't take a breath. It's just not, I mean, it's just so difficult to watch someone try to live that way. So I think in that regard, like I was not struggling with denial. I knew that this was what was going to be. Am I angry? Those other things, I don't know. They may creep here and there in moments where I may experience that. But I will tell you, and again, this from a vulnerability standpoint, and you know this, right? So I'm would like to consider myself a person of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of that for me is because my perspective is broader. And when I'm myopic, if I'm myopic and I say things like, oh, he's not going to see my kids get married. He's not going to be here to be a part of, a great grandchild, because, he has 6 grandchildren. None of them have any children yet. So he never got to, if I get myopic and think about those individual things, I understand that will make me feel sad and maybe even angry. But when I step back and I look at the broader view instead, I think that's where for me a lot of my faith comes into play, because I'm working from a different kind of timeline rather than just the event-oriented timeline. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think kind of going back to where we started, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like when you say like I don't feel old, I think there's a caveat to that, where it's not that I feel 20, because
Right.
I cannot get out the bed that fast as I did when I was 20. I am not moving that fast. I was watching.
I can't stay up all night anymore. I can't do.
My joke with my kids, I always say, I'm going to stay up all night. And the kids are like, and I'm out. Last night, Todd had to take sweet baby TJ back to school. TJ got COVID for Thanksgiving. Yay.
Yay. What a nice present. Yay.
I made extra collard greens and extra cheese because he's like, I can't taste it. So we had to eat extra just to see if he could taste it, maybe the 3rd or 4th time. But we were watching this story, this comedian. There's a woman, her name is Leanne. I can't remember her last name. Her name's Leanne. She's an older white lady from the South. And one of the things that she was saying in her movie was that somebody's husband had passed and she was going to date again. And she goes, can you imagine dating again? She was like, if you have a one night stand, do they bring their CPAP machine? And I was dying. She was like,
it's so funny. It's so funny.
That's her quote. She goes, I can't date. I have a messed up toenail. And I was like, oh my God, I have a messed up toenail. Like, how do you explain
that? It's so funny you said so I have a friend who is single and who is my age, and he has a CPAP machine, and I'm always like, so what you doing with that thing? Are you packing it? And you're like,
when you date, do you
you're like, I'm going to spend the night. And he was like, first of all, don't think I'm, such a whore that I sleep with everybody on the first night. I'm like, first of all, I'm not judging you, but I will say to you, I know you, and it might be by the 3rd date, I know you are. So, like.
Wrong. But you think about it, I think we're both aware of what our age are. We are accepting of the pieces. We're doing everything we can to take care of ourselves the way we need to. But even like Clay, what's so funny about this Christmas tree that Clay put up, because Clay wanted to do it as a surprise, because they were like, you're not going to go put that Christmas tree up. You are not going to take the Christmas tree and the ornaments and set up your thing. And it has been like that for the last.
Is correct.
Clay is absolute. But it's funny how it makes you think of, at this age, there are certain things, and I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Like I'm okay with this Christmas tree having, the old trees. Like, it's okay. But they remember, and when you get to a certain age where your children remember a different family.
Yes. And it's very interesting you're saying that, because my mom said, I'm going to put the wreath on the front door. I'm going to change the flag out by the garage. You know that flag. Come on.
Oh my God. Please just, okay. Whatever makes you happy.
And by the way, as an aside, there's no good place to put the flag if you have a Ring doorbell. There's no good place to put it. And that ring is going to go off
Over.
47,000 times a day. There's just burn the flag. Stop. Just stop.
Please just nope. She changed the flag to the holiday flag.
And that is going to be it. And she said, I'm not putting a tree up. I'm not. And, I said, first of all, you don't have to explain it to me. And secondly, I get it. You might not. Obviously, I mean, it just happened. You're not feeling like celebrating Christmas. I understand. And I even said to her, okay, do you want to come to Florida? Do you want to hang out with us? And she's like, no.
Mm-mm.
No, because we'll be, the kids are, and she doesn't want to ruin it, right, for the kids. Like, I want it to be Christmas for them. I don't want to have Christmas this year. I may not feel this way next year and the years after that. But right now, I'm just not in the Christmas mindset. I appreciate that. I think we all need to appreciate that. Like, what's going to work for people? You shared a little bit ago about Thanksgiving. Like, some people are just, Thanksgiving's never the same because of certain things. That may be the case. I think, though, from a coping standpoint, not the immediacy, but as time goes on, how do we learn to accept the change, right? At some point, you have to look at it and say, you're right. It will never be what it was. Let me tell you something. One year when I was in college, I went to my grandparents' house. As I shared with you, my dad's dad had passed away years earlier, and my grandmother remarried. And there's lots of thoughts that some people in the family have about this remarriage, but that's a whole other show. And halfway through the dinner, it turned into a food fight. Literally, people throwing food at each other at the Thanksgiving table.
Stop.
And laughing hysterically. Now, I will say to you, first of all, I had a friend of mine from college a friend of mine from high school. Actually, I met up with, and he didn't have anywhere to go, and he came with me. And he was like, what's happening? What is happening here? And I said, this never has happened before. Certainly, if my grandfather was around, it would not have happened. But it's different now. It's different, and it's different memories. It's different experiences. It's not going to be what it once was, and it's okay. And it's okay.
And I think one of the things that is hard, talking about your mother, I feel like your mother had to let you know so she wouldn't ruin your Christmas memory.
Yeah. Yes.
Of
yes.
It's going to look like. And also, Florida, when your mom thinks of Christmas, is up there.
Yep.
It's on the coast in Philadelphia. It's not.
Yep.
You can't picture it with sand, and it takes time to pick when you live. I've lived in Florida too. It takes time for you to get used to it being 70 degrees and there's no snow, and your Santa has on it takes time. There's a song that was funny. I grew up.
It took me 5 minutes. I just want to make sure you know that. It took me 5 minutes to adjust, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. Same. I was ready when I moved in May for Christmas on the beach when I moved forward. But the thing that was funny for the kids growing up, my first half was in upstate New York. The second half was in Texas. But both of my kids were born in Florida. And they learned this song and they say, there is no snow, there is no snow, there is no snow in Florida, but I can play in the sun all day. There is no snow in Florida. And all the kids knew it. They teach them at school.
Oh my gosh.
All of the other songs don't make sense to little kids dashing through the snow in a sleigh.
That's so interesting. Yes.
That. So when we moved from South Florida to Oregon, and I know, but I did. And we lived to tell the story. And we went from no snow to being snowed in for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you did. You did.
And we took the kids sledding. When we moved to Oregon, we had been there and it started snowing. And the kids, we didn't have anything, no gloves, no boots, no jackets. And I have a picture of their first snowman. They were in 3rd and 6th grade, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And we knew like our life was going to be different. Their
Yes.
life, they didn't know any of that. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's okay. And it might take a little bit longer.
And it might take a while. Yes. Yes.
Eventually, you have your beach chair in your hand walking out of the airport.
That wasn't that bad, but close. So during the service on Monday, I just reached over. I was sitting next to my mom. I just reached over and held her hand. Didn't say anything. And she didn't really feel like holding my hand back, which is okay. But I just reached over and held her hand. And I say that to say, I think it's just in the small gestures when it comes to grief that I think the right kind of opportunity to let someone know I'm giving you space. I have no expectations for anything. I don't need you to hold my hand back. I don't need you to cry to let me know that I'm affecting you. I don't need you. I'm just here. And I just reached over and I held your hand because I just wanted to be affirmational to you. I would say when I think about grief, especially in the workplace, for me, it's a lot of this small. It's a lot of the small. I'm here. I don't know that I'll have anything of value to say, but I'm going to be here to listen. If you do need to express, I'm gonna just sit here attentively and listen. I don't have to feel the pressure of fixing this. I just want to be here as a sponge for you to sort of pour into, if that's what you need to do. And it might be just in the little gesture, the slight pat on the back, maybe as you're walking by to somebody, and you don't need to say the words. They know that you understand what they might be feeling at that moment. It's those small moments to me that I think really tie a community of people together at the workplace. It is that smallness. What'd you say?
It is. It made me think of, I have this book, and I've talked about it. It's called Bring Me the Rhinoceros.
Yes.
And other poems to bring you joy. And when I was going through, when my mom passed away, some of you know Heather Bussing, and we were on Twitter, and Heather kept saying, look, a rhinoceros. She kept sending me these pictures of rhinoceroses. And I was like, I was in such grief. And then all of a sudden it'd say, look, Jackye, it's a rhinoceros. And literally everything stopped.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
why are you sending me this?
And then it was a week later and it was like, look, Jackye, a rhinoceros. And I was like, what are you doing? Then a week later, sent me a stuffed animal rhinoceros.
Oh my gosh, I love her so much.
And then a hand-carved wooden rhinoceros. And then sent me this book about the rhinoceros. And so now it was the only thing that made me stop grieving. As silly and weird as it was. And I didn't get it because this is over the course of about 3 months.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't sure. And so don't think you have to do, like John's saying, doing a grand gesture. I mean, we have a group chat of friends where we send pictures all the time with no context.
At all.
And it becomes a time where everybody is encouraged.
You froze.
Sorry. I think I was broken down. But so I just wanted to say, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Just sending a picture of, this is me right now. This is where I am right now. Kind of feels like a hug, you know?
And we would recommend, and I know we're over, so I want to be sensitive, but take a picture of something on the television. like we have a friend that will send us pictures of them solving Wheel of Fortune puzzles, right? Which we are like,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, but it's like, okay, what am I looking at, right? Like it takes you
It's
like
like
the
every
rhinoceros,
week
right?
we'll ask,
Yes. What was the puzzle? But I have friends that will send. I took a picture of Charlie Brown special and send it to my kids for like the Great Pumpkin. And even in moments like that where they're like, I just need to see that one image. It brings me somewhere else. It lifts my spirit. It changes the trajectory of kind of what I was dwelling on. It can be that simple. But I want to say thank you for chatting through this with me, by the way, because I know, again, like you said, it's the second time this year. But we have so much in common that it's no surprise to me that we would wind up having this in common as well, in the same year, having to deal with some things. So again, to our millions of fans, we're sorry we were late.